The story of Volodymyr Zelenskyy is one of those tales that, if you pitched it as a movie, a producer might just tell you it's, well, a little too unbelievable. It's a true odyssey, how a comedian, a guy who used to make fun of politicians for a living, somehow found himself on the world's biggest stage, leading his country through its absolute darkest hour. And this was the moment. The world was watching, pretty much expecting Kyiv to fall any second. And then this shaky, defiant video, shot on a smartphone, just changed everything. But to really get how he ended up on this freezing street corner, we've got to rewind the tape, all the way back. So let's go back to the beginning, to a man whose life was really set up for a totally different path. He was born in an industrial, Russian-speaking city, and honestly, his early years gave zero hints of the statesman he would one day become. Okay, so here's the first major fork in the road for him. Zelenskyy gets a law degree, right? That's his ticket to a conventional, pretty stable career. But he basically walks away from the courtroom. Instead, he chooses the stage, a place where your influence isn't about laws and precedents, but about grabbing an audience and holding their attention. That one choice, well, it would end up defining his entire future. And listen, he wasn't just some local comedian telling jokes. He built a pop culture empire. His production company, Kwartal 95, became one of the most successful in all of Eastern Europe. He won Ukraine's Dancing with the Stars, he was a huge TV star, and, get this, he was even the Ukrainian voice of Paddington Bear. He literally became the face of Ukrainian entertainment, all while satirizing the very oligarchs and politicians he'd one day have to face for real. And this is where the story takes a turn that is just completely surreal. A fictional TV show didn't just kind of predict his future, it became the actual blueprint for his rise to power. The show was called Servant of the People. In it, Zelenskyy plays this ordinary schoolteacher who, after this profanity-laced rant against corruption goes viral, gets unexpectedly elected president. For a country that was so tired of cronyism and broken politics, this wasn't just a TV show. It was like a collective fantasy playing out on screen. It was this cathartic vision of what their country could be. The character he played, Basil Holobarejko, was everything the public felt their real leaders were not. He was honest, he lived in a normal apartment, he rode the bus, and he was completely allergic to corruption. He was the ultimate outsider, and the entire country just fell in love with the idea of him. So how in the world did this brilliant blurring of TV and reality turn into an actual political campaign? Well, it powered one of the most unusual and most effective runs for office in modern history. He announced his real-life run for president on New Year's Eve, completely upstaging the actual president's speech. He totally skips the traditional rallies and attack ads, campaigning instead through his social media and his comedy shows. He even named his political party Servant of the People. It was genius. He wasn't just running for president, he was basically selling the final season of his show with the entire country as the audience. And the result? A jaw-dropping 73.2% of the vote. I mean, this wasn't just a victory, it was a political earthquake. He managed to unite the whole country, winning in both the Russian-speaking East and the Ukrainian-speaking West. He just completely swept away the old political establishment. But as you can imagine, the switch from playing a president on TV to being the real one was a brutal baptism by fire. The credits rolled on the comedy, and the harsh, unforgiving reality of governing began. His first few years in office were incredibly tough. He tried to negotiate peace for the war in Donbass, but quickly ran into a wall with Russia's demands. He got dragged right into the middle of a U.S. impeachment scandal. And back home, the slow pace of fighting the very corruption he promised to end was causing his popularity to just plummet. And then came the day that made all those other challenges seem small, the day that history pivoted and the actor was forced into the role of a lifetime with no script. And that brings us right back to this moment, on that Kyiv street. The world was offering him a flight out of the country. He famously replied, "I need ammunition, not a ride." This simple video, it wasn't just proof that he was alive, it was the moment he instantly morphed from a struggling politician into a global symbol of defiance. He didn't run, he stayed.
And his transformation was visual too, which was so smart. The suits and ties, gone, replaced by these simple olive drab t-shirts. Now, this wasn't a fashion statement. It was a powerful piece of communication. It said, "I'm not a politician in a palace. I am with you. I am a leader of a nation at war."
And this is where he really leaned into his greatest skill, his mastery of communication. He took every single thing he learned on stage and in front of a camera and turned the entire world into his audience.
He started giving these virtual speeches to parliaments all over the globe, and every single one was a masterclass. He didn't just use some generic script, no way. When he spoke to the UK, he invoked Churchill. In Germany, he talked about the Berlin Wall. To the US Congress, he brought up Pearl Harbor and 9/11. He spoke to each nation in the language of its own history, making Ukraine's fight feel personal to them, and basically forcing governments to step up. But even as he became this global icon, we have to remember that the reality on the ground remains incredibly difficult. His job and his nation's fight for its very survival are far from over. I mean, think about the monumental challenges he's still wrestling with. An economy that's been completely devastated, kept alive almost entirely by foreign aid, the never-ending fight against corruption inside his own government, a fight he has to win to secure a European future, and above all, the unimaginable human cost of this war, a weight that he has to carry every single day. But no matter what happens next, his legacy seems secure in one huge way. Through his leadership, his communication, and his sheer refusal to back down, he has fundamentally changed how the world sees Ukraine. It's no longer seen as just some post-Soviet state. It's now seen as a bastion of democracy, fighting for its freedom and ours. So in the end, you have an actor who played a president, a fictional hero for a country that desperately needed one, and then history intervened and demanded that he become that hero for real. His story is still being written, and the entire world is watching to see what his final act will be.